Those of you who are joining us, welcome again. Uh, if you guys can continue to share, just say that I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, user. Appreciate it. If you can continue to share and like, so that this will get to other people as well. Today we're talking about some interesting things about uh, Emperor as a Khalid. Okay, let's try to get into 200. Hi, Mani. You can try to message me on here, and then I'll try to be more. I know I haven't been answering messages on TikTok as much. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, but I'll try to do a better job of looking at it. Hi, Gul. Salam Prayot. Hello, hello.
Hold on, let me just turn the camera on.
Sure.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How's it going?
Great. Just had my little sister just got married last Saturday, so that's pretty much the main thing.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
All right.
Dawid is your name, right? Are you from Ethiopia?
Yes, yes, I am.
Sweet. I've been there before.
Awesome.
Because I've always wanted to go there. Also, partially because I'm Israeli descent.
Ah, I see.
You probably know the term falasha.
Yes, yes, yes. I had a meeting with a Elisha priest today.
Oh, well, we don't call them priests, we call them rabbis.
Well, Cassis, we call them Cassis. So, yeah, Kashi.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But
where are you located?
I'm in the Virginia area. So this is, are you new to my channel?
Yeah, because I just never met you until now.
Okay. So this room is for history. We learn about Ethiopian history. You're more than welcome.
Oh, awesome. I'd like that.
Sure. Okay. So we'll learn about Ethiopian history. So what we do is the first part is for anyone more than welcome to come and learn. And then after that, we will accept questions related with the topic that we raised.
Wait. Also, what was I thinking? Well, there's one movie which is one of my favorite movies. It's called Live and Become. It's pretty much about the time when the Ethiopians first migrated to Israel and they had to walk across the border of Sudan. But the main character of the movie was a Christian Ethiopian who got adopted by Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. And I would definitely like to learn about history of Ethiopia as well. Like I know tribes like Oromo, Tigray, or Amhara. I'm sure there's a lot more, but those are the ones that I really know of. And I'm learning Amharic every Saturday morning.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I'm older than 18, younger than 90.
Okay, you don't look that old. I thought we could have been about the same age.
Sure, sure. So, like I said, the first part is like a lecture. So I'm gonna start soon, and you're more than welcome to stay. But I generally ask people to mute their mics and turn off their camera for the first part of the lecture, and then the second part, people are able to interact with me related with the subject. So you're more than welcome to stay. I just ask that you mute and turn off your camera for the lecture part, and then after that, you can ask me questions that you may have.
That's very interesting. I think I have an important phone call right now, but if I have time to come back for the lecture, I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming. Okay. All right. So we're close to about 200. Uh, so if you guys continue to share the newcomers, and we hit 200, that would be great. I always say whenever we do it in English, uh, the shares are a little bit lower, the likes are a little bit lower, but that's okay because I think there's some people like our brother who just came. Oh, look, we just got a bunch of energy. Um, yeah, it looks like we're about to hit the 200 mark. And there it is. Okay. Um, so let's go ahead and get started then. Um, if you guys continue to just share and like throughout the lecture, that would be great. Especially if you could remind some people, some folks down, that would be awesome as well. So if you're new to my channel, again, welcome. Everyone is welcome here. Uh, if you are okay, no worries, no worries. So, if you're new to my channel, this channel is dedicated to learning about Ethiopian history. For the past several weeks, I've been trying to come in here and talk about various topics and ideas about history. And That's what we do. And I'm really trying to do an experiment. And the experiment is it possible for us to weigh in on history and discuss about history in a peaceful manner? For those of you who may not know, Ethiopia has been going through some, hardship for quite some time now, and we're trying to. And it's been very difficult to talk about history. Various people have different kind of ideas and perspectives on what history looks like. So it's been tough to get some real kind of um, meaningful discussions about how we look at history, how we understand history, and what have you not. So, in order to change that, I'm hoping that I know TikTok is not the place to do it, but I'm hoping in a platform like this, we can have meaningful debates, meaningful conversations without people's kind of feelings getting hurt. And that's one of the things that I've noticed is people really, take things personal. And that's not what this is meant to be. This is meant to be for everybody. As I always say, history is for everyone, everyone. So I don't own history. You don't own history. No one owns history. History is ours. It's yours. It's mine. We share it. And anyone who is interested in history can come and have conversations. One of the things that I always ask is if one of the things that I always ask is if you're coming here to have discussions, just make sure you come with your own. Um, sorry. Okay. There's always some questionable comments I get here and there, so I had to tackle that. Now I'm back. So all I ask is that people really take their time to bring their kind of evidence of what they're looking at. I try to look at both the traditional way of looking at history, and I look at the scholarship and what the scholarship say on a particular topic. So today we happen to be looking at the 6th century King Kaleb. There are a few things that we're going to talk about that. If you guys don't know anything about it, it's actually a really, really exciting story. I'm going to share that with you. And at the end, you will have opportunity to ask me questions directly. So I hope you stay tuned. The story is really, really exciting. It's one of my favorite stories of all time. And the craziest thing about this story is it's true. So it's not like a fairy tale, folk tale, or anything like that. It's written about it in various sources. So we know that the story is true. So King Kaleb, let's get to it. Um, in the year 518 AD, King Kaleb of Aksum received a report that Christians in the region of Himar, present-day Yemen, were being persecuted. Now, for the first 300 or 400 years prior to Kaleb, there was this friction and tension among the Aksumites, which is in the northern region of Ethiopia, and the Himarites in present-day Yemen. And we often see that there was this tension and this back and forth. Sometimes the Aksumites would go over to the Himarites, and there would be war, and sometimes the South Arabians would come down to Aksum, and this kind of going back and forth was very accustomed to, and they had tension. But this one was a little bit different because now there was also tension in South Arabia. So this is in the year 518 AD. So in 518 AD, this is before Islam. So when we're saying that it is South Arabia, we're saying at a time where Islam didn't begin. So when we talk about the Abrahamic faiths in South Arabia, we're really talking about two religions, because Islam is not there yet. We're talking about Judaism and Christianity. When we learn or study that period, there was the seesaw of change between Christians and Jews. And Christians got persecuted by the Jews, and sometimes the Jews would be, various things would happen. So there was this tension in the region of Himar. And under the leadership of a Jewish leader, this Christian community in Himar were being persecuted. And who hears about this? The Aksumite emperor, King Kaleb. Now, as a Christian, Kaleb, this really bothers him. And it didn't just bother him, but it bothered so many of the other Christian world at the time. And they figured they wanted to do something about this. They wanted to put an end to this persecution that was taking place in 518 AD. So Himar, or King Kaleb, decided to journey to South Arabia to rescue the Christians. Immediately, there's something that we learn here about what King Kaleb is doing. King Kaleb's expedition to South Arabia was not the result of wanting to, because he identified in a fellow, African or Ethiopian, or he wasn't focused on the ethnicity of the person, but he was simply interested in the fact that there were other Christians in other regions that were being persecuted. So he saw this need to go and rescue his fellow Christian brethren. This is at face value against the present day narrative of the fact that Ethiopian Orthodoxy is dependent on a specific ethnic ground. This was simply not true, at least for the case of King Kaleb. Of course, we could extrapolate that to later on, and I'll make that argument at another time. But today, that's not what we're looking at. Today, we're only looking at the fact that for King Kaleb, his kind of motivation for rescuing Christians was not political in nature, but spiritual and Christian in nature. Other Christians were being persecuted, ergo, he wanted to go and rescue this community. But it wasn't just the Ethiopian King Kaleb who was bothered by this persecution of Christians in South Arabia. It was also none other than the Romans. Because keep in mind, 518 AD is about half a century, or half a century or so after the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD, right? So on 451 AD, there's a lot of things that occurred. Of course, there was a schism between what we call today the Oriental Orthodox Church and what we call the Catholic Church. I'm not going to get into that. But one of the things that was decided in the Council of Chalcedon under the see of Pope Leo, the so-called Great, is that Rome is the supreme overseer of the Christian kingdom. And he saw Rome as being the top figure, the supreme being, the supreme kind of synod above all the other world. So when anyone from a Christian community was being persecuted, the Romans automatically said, hey, this is kind of like gonna get our attention. Yes, Sadiq, boom, it is about Kaleb's conquest to Hamar. But in the expedition to South Arabia, Rome was not present. Rome was nowhere to be found. Who was there? The African, the Aksumite King Kaleb. He made the expedition to South Arabia. And he went in there and he got rid of the persecution. He protected the Christians. He established a church, sent over Ethiopian soldiers, Ethiopian priests, Ethiopian clergy over to South Arabia. There's something that we have to raise here. I've talked about this before. If you've been in my channel, you know that I often talk about Aksumites and who are they really? Last week we had a conversation about are Aksumites Semites or are they Cushites? Are they Cushitic or are they Semitic? So there's this kind of like conversation and scholarship. And a lot of the time, and last week we had a brother come in and you know give his presentation, and his idea was, you know, the indigenous people originally were Cushites, and here comes the, you know, these bad guys, the South Arabians, and they kind of took over the Cushites, and suddenly the so-called present-day Semitic people are the result of those people. This is a very wrong way of looking at history. Why is this wrong? What makes someone Cushitic or Semitic? This has been my number one question. What makes somebody Semitic or Cushitic? Now, if we're saying because from South Arabia, people migrated over to present-day Ethiopia, their kind of transition and mingling with the indigenous Cushites is what makes them Semitic. Are we to say then, here's the point, that when the Cushitic or Aksumite Kaleb, and even before this, even very early on, they migrated over to South Arabia. We know this because of archaeological evidence. So when the Africans went over to South Arabia, are South Arabians suddenly Cushitic now? Or to say it simply, when Africans go over to South Arabia and they start to mingle with South Arabians, do South Arabians start becoming African? Are they African all of a sudden? These are all interesting questions. By the way, I even ask, what is being African? I'll show you guys on the map. Sorry, my Facebook and YouTube friends, you guys won't be able to give me a second. You guys are not going to be able to that's not what I want you guys to see. Okay. For example, I've talked about this before. Okay. Where is Africa? Where is Africa? All right. If I say point Africa, or where's the parameter of Africa, people will say here. Right? People will say here. Here is Africa. But I'm like, why do we cut it here? Oh man, why do we cut Africa here? Why don't we include this area? Why can't this be part of Africa? Right? Someone said the cut point, the cutoff point is here. That's a man-made idea of what is Africa and what is Arab. The point here that I'm trying to make is we have been told historically that from South Arabia, people came across to Aksum. And when they came, these people became Semites. Okay, but when Africans go to Yemen, present-day Yemen, do they become Africans? If the Kushites go here, are they now Kushites? No, it never works that way. Why? Why? Middle East is not Africa. These are like, I think you guys are missing the point. The point is someone labeled it as Africa. And my question is why? Why is this labeled as Africa and this is Middle East? Who makes these criterias? Why are they made? Why are these divisions made? What is the point that people are trying to tell us? These are the questions that I think we should be asking. Of course, Africa is not part of the Middle East. But why? Because someone said so? And what is the parameter? What is the measurement they use to say one is here and what is there? How do we make the decisions? That's the question. But that's not my topic today, so I'll continue to move on. So when Kaleb went, one of the things that he did, like I said, is he resurrected or he established churches. Not only did he establish churches, but he made sure that Ethiopians went there and Ethiopians started to protect the region around there. An interesting thing that King Kaleb did at the time is he also resurrected monuments, a huge monument, REI 191, and he inscribed it. And he talked about the expedition that he took while going to South Arabia. The reason why I'm bringing this up is what's interesting about this specific inscription or monument that King Kaleb established is the time period is 6th century. By the 6th century, if you guys are not familiar with Ethiopic script, they already had embedded the vowel system in the letters, in what we call the fidel. So instead of just consonants, the vowel system was embedded in it. But prior to the 4th century, for example, there was no vowel system. Now, I worked really hard to find this inscription of King Kaleb. I couldn't find it. This is the inscription of Izana. Now, if you guys are familiar with Ethiopic script, you can see it, that these are just first order consonants, and you don't really see the vowel systems embedded in here. What Kaleb did is, even though he had the vowel systems already, he resurrected a monument that looks like this, which is really, really interesting, right? Which begs the question, why would he do this? Now, again, not part of my talk, so I won't focus too much on this. But after he established the churches, the priests in Ethiopia, Izana went back to Aksum, thinking that everything was good to go. King Kaleb went back to Aksum and he called it a day. But immediately after he went back, what he did not know, or maybe he didn't foresee, is that there was a king named Yusuf, who is a Jew, who many think is a Jew, who's very upset by what King Kaleb did. He overthrew the Jewish leadership, and he instituted Christian leadership in the city of Himar. So he became very upset. He became very angry. And he decided that he was going to do a second campaign of persecution against the Christians. But in order to do this, he wanted to eliminate any idea, any kind of presence of threats that can get in his way of the persecution against the Christians in Himar, present-day Yemen. So the first thing he did, King Yusuf of Himar, is he went and he killed all of the Ethiopians that King Kaleb had put in that region to protect the Himarites. He killed all of them. There's actually this quote that is attributed to this King Yusuf, and this is what he says. He says, "First, I was able to throw into disorder and seize all those Ethiopians who remained in our country, who were guarding that church, which they had published abroad that they had built in our country, and I killed them all, 280 men, monks and laymen. That church of theirs I converted into a synagogue for us." These are the words of Yusuf. So Yusuf is going into this region where the Ethiopians were, and he killed all the Ethiopians. Why is he doing this? He's doing this because he doesn't want the Aksumites or King Kaleb to interfere in his campaign against killing the Himarites, the South Arabian Christians. Now, here's an interesting question. Why is he like gloating over killing the Ethiopians? Right? Like, why is he so proud? Like, yes, I killed the Ethiopians. Like, why is he so happy about this? Well, it could only mean one thing, which is it shows you kind of the size of the Aksumite Empire, right? Like, if think about it like soccer. During soccer period, whenever we go to the World Cup, African team never makes it, right? But if, like, let's say, I don't know, Nigeria beats Cameroon, you're like, okay, Nigeria beat Cameroon. But if Nigeria beat, let's say, Germany, then you're like, what? You know, like that gets your attention, right? Why? Because Germany's considered a pretty good team, right? So if a country is beating another, you're like, yeah, we beat them, and you really feel happy because it tells you how good Germany is. If Nigeria is beating Germany, that means Nigeria is just a good. This is kind of the idea that is also that we see here. The fact that the Himarite, the South Arabian king, is gloating over killing Ethiopians shows you the size, the kind of the honest, the greatness that the Aksumite kind of empire had at the time. Then he didn't stop there. King Yusuf wanted to continue to kill the Ethiopian or the Christians in South Arabia. But there was one thing that was getting in his way. And that thing was he wanted to kind of block all access for the Ethiopians to get into that region. He didn't want anything to get in his way. He just wanted to go ahead and get on with it and kind of kill everybody that was there. So what he did was, I'm going to show you guys. This time I'm going to share on Facebook and YouTube as well, for those of you guys following along. Okay. So here's Ethiopia. The way that the two regions would kind of get across is they would get on a boat and they would go across this body of water and they would get here, right? This was known as Bab al-Mandab, meaning the gate of tears. Bab al-Mandab. And this is a crazy story, but Yusuf built a series of chains, like kind of like a wall, going across this region here. that make sense? I know it's like harder to kind of visualize, but he built kind of a chain. I kind of have the drawing here. If you guys see, like here, this is a drawing. It's not the actual thing. Like a series of chains going across here. Why? So it could block access to the ports. So if the Aksumites wanted to come to Yemen like they did the first time, this chain going across the body of the water would prevent them from doing this. Who's building this? Yusuf. Who's Yusuf? The South Arabian king, who is about to persecute the Christians in Himar. And we have this story written in, it survives in Ge'ez, Arabic, Syriac, Greek, and other sources as well. And thank God that we have all these sources. It's written about like everywhere, like everywhere. And like, thank God it is, because if it only survived in Ge'ez, the story wouldn't have been accepted. It wouldn't have been believable. But it's written about, so the rest of the world also knows it, and of course, scholarship. These are one of the things that they accept. So Yusuf, he goes and he builds this chain, thereby kind of preventing the Aksumites from entering the port to South Arabia. And he goes into the city of Najran. And he continues his massacre against the Christians. Michael Nebs writes about this, and he says the following. The way he kind of described it is really poetic, I think. He says, the citizens of Najran surrendered to him, but Yusuf failed to keep his oath. He promised them that if you surrender, I will not kill you. All you got to do is surrender, and that's it. If you kind of give up Christianity, that's fine. So they did that. So the citizens of Najran surrendered to him, but Yusuf failed to keep his oath. After overpowering some 300 leading Christians, he ordered the bone of bishops who were buried in Najran to be exhumed and collected in the church, where he had them burned together with the laity and clerics. Imagine this. He exhumed, like he excavated the bones of the bishops from that region, and he collected them, and he gathered all the Christians, and he burned them. He burned the churches. He killed everyone. This is considered one of the greatest massacre in Christendom history ever. The massacre of the Najran Christians. It was a major point in history. Now, for Ethiopians, first, I should say, this really disturbed the Christian world. This really disturbed everyone. It wasn't just like one or two people. Like I said, this was a major massacre that happened in the Christian world. And everyone was kind of like, what do we do? This is kind of big. Think of like 9/11, right? Like everybody's at shock. Then King Kaleb, just like everybody else, he's kind of thinking, what do we do? How do we go about this? And the Roman emperor, who had built a reputation of saying, I'm the champion of Christians and this and that, whatever, he sends a letter, a request to King Kaleb, asking him, and catch this part, this is the important part, to assist him in his expedition to South Arabia. All right. So I want everybody to write here. What did the Roman emperor ask King Kaleb to do? He asked him to do what? I want everybody to write it. Are you guys with me? What did he do? Uh-oh. All right. A system. Thank you, Blaine. I was kind of getting worried there. To a system. Thank you. This becomes very important. Bait and switch? Not really. To assist him. To assist him in his expedition. Okay, people are paying attention. To assist him in his expedition. To assist him in his expedition. And this letter, it gets better, was delivered to King Kaleb by the hand of the Coptic or Alexandrian bishop of Timothy. I'm going to review that. Here's King Kaleb. King Kaleb is sitting down, he's thinking, and he gets a letter from the Emperor of Rome to assist him in his expedition to South Arabia. And he gets this letter vis-a-vis the hand of the Egyptian bishop of Timothy. There's a reason why this is done. There's a reason why the Romans are not handing this piece of paper down to Kaleb themselves. They could have gone down there. That's not the issue. The issue is one-on-one. There was the ecclesiastical relationship between Ethiopia and Egypt. And Egypt saw herself as the mother church. There is no such thing, by the way. There's no such thing as a mother church. But she saw herself as a mother church. So the very fact that they're handing down this letter from the Archbishop from Alexandria, there's an implicit kind of thing of saying, look, your mom is telling you what to do. That you should do it, right? In essence, King Kaleb didn't have a lot of choices. So he said, you know what? I'm going to make this expedition. After all, I'm assisting the Roman Empire in their expedition to South Arabia. So then he said, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it. And he got up and he's ready to go. He looked to the left. He looked to the right. There was nobody there. Not a soul, not a dime, not a sound, crickets, nothing, no one. The letter said, by the way, the emperor promised him that the Romans would, for their part, send soldiers, and they will send soldiers from Egyptian towns such as Coptus, Bernican, recruited from nobodies of Nubia, and so on and so forth. Like, so many soldiers were promised to Kaleb, like from all over northern Africa and even from Rome. But when Kaleb was ready to start the expedition, crickets, crickets, crickets. There is nothing there. Such a sad story. So when he recognized that, when King Kaleb, the Aksumite, recognized that he wasn't going to get the help from this world, he looked up. See, he looked across, there was nothing. So he looked up and he began to pray. He prayed to God that God will come and save him. By the way, again, this is written about not in some, just in Ethiopian sources. It's written about in Arabic, Syriac sources, other sources as well. So this is not just like the Ethiopian story, whatever that we like to tell. It's throughout. And he began his journey because King Kaleb believed that he had to save the Christians, not because they were the same ethnic group as him, not because they shared the same political rights as him, simply because they were Christians. And this is kind of the Christianity that we see in very early periods. This kind of idea of ethnicity. A lot of the times, Orthodoxy is kind of assigned with a specific ethnic group. That just wasn't the case. That's not history. Maybe if you look at the last, I don't know, like 50 years or so, maybe, I don't know, but it wasn't the case very early on. Oh, that wasn't the case of the entirety of Christianity. But to look at what some people are doing today and look at some of the narratives that people are giving today and say, look at this, look at that. That's not giving you the whole picture of what things are happening. That's not the entirety of the church. It's not the entirety of what how things worked. No, I'm not at Yale University. I was at Yale University on April, helping with the presentation. I wasn't doing the presentation. So here comes Kaleb. Kaleb begins his expedition to South Arabia. He goes, and suddenly he did not know, and I'm going to show you guys my screen. He did not know that the chains of here's the depiction of the Ethiopians. This is what I think happened. This is what they look like. You know, they were ready to go. But this chain that the King Yusuf of South Arabia built was right here. And King Kaleb did not know that. So when he went there, suddenly he was confronted with this chain, this wall that was resurrected in the body of the water. While he was here, suddenly Roman merchant ships showed up. Not soldier ships, but merchant ships. This is very important. Hatke, who's done his dissertation on this topic, says that these merchant ships are in no way designed to make us believe that they were sent by the Roman emperor. Instead, they happened to be there for merchant, for trade. And they happened to be there at the right time, but they did not come under the rule or the guidance of the Roman emperor. So the fact that Roman merchant ships showed up, the credit is going to God, not the Roman emperor. This is very important. There was nothing that the Roman emperor did to help the Ethiopian king go to South Arabia. This is a very, very, very important concept. This is in the 520 something. I forget the exact year. I think 523 or something like that. AD. But that's not the only thing happened. Here I have a personified version of like, you know, what kind of happened is for children, but it really does kind of get the point across. At the same time, when these merchant ships showed up, keep in mind, by the way, soldier ships are very different compared to the merchant ships. The way they're designed and all this stuff, they look very, very different. They function different. So merchant ships are not meant to be for war. So these merchant ships, along with the ships of Kaleb, came, and suddenly, as all the sources tell us, there was a huge storm that appeared out of nowhere. And these ships kind of oriented themselves in such a way, because of the wind, that they started kind of slamming against the ship in a specific way to get the wall, the chains to break. Does that make sense? This was huge. I mean, think about this. You're talking about like in the middle of a strait, a body of water, where you have like a series of chains meant to kind of block your entrance. And you have suddenly a huge storm coming. And that storm kind of colliding with the ships in such a way that they broke the chains that were set in the middle of the strait, allowing the Aksumites to clear to come in and get to the port so that they can save and rescue the Christian Hemorrhites. This was indeed a huge miracle. This is one of the greatest miracles that was written about in history. It was, like I said, it's written about in multiple stories. This is really amazing, and it's an amazing story if you really think about it. I have a YouTube video on it that I think might really help how things played out. There's a few other things that I want to discuss related with this. So one of the things that King Kaleb did in his time is like I said, he resurrected monuments talking about his expeditions. describing what he did. One of them were non-vocalized. The other one was vocalized. And let's look at the vocalized one for a second, because there's kind of an important thing that I do want to talk about here. All right. So this one is King Kaleb's kind of monument. This is his. And you guys could see just how amazing it is. Of course, there are parts that kind of broken and not, but if you guys look, this is just amazing. We're looking at a written work from the 6th century, which is remarkable stuff. Whenever I see stuff like this, it just gives me chills to look at. What do we learn from this? Well, why is this important? What do we learn from it? Well, I'm going to put this. This is from the book of Psalms. And I recognize this is the English group. So you guys may not be able to read Ge'ez well. That's okay. We just want to look at characters. We're going to try to compare characters. This is print. This is the inscription that we're looking at from the 6th century. All right. Here we have this character. It's called E. This is called Negerekemu. Okay. If you look at this character and then you look at the Bible, this is from Psalter 56, I believe, starting from verse the end of 15. You have We'engerkemu. Okay, We'engerkemu here, We'engerkemu here. And it says Mat'ana Gara, and then it says Mat'ana Gabra. And then it has Latina, Lenafsia, whatever. And then it says Ba'afuya here, Ba'afuya, right? Ba'afuya. And then here you have Habihu Ba'afuya, Wakalaiku Badasania, Wakalaiku Badasani. What am I trying to get at? Here, this is from 6th century inscription of King Kaleb. He is citing from the book of Psalms. This is something I've been talking about over and over and over and over and over again. Here's a primary source. This is our REI, what is it? 195, I believe. Yeah, pretty sure. REI 195. Sorry. So what this tells us is from the 6th century, we have people who are citing from the book of Psalms. We've had this conversation over and over again. The Bible was translated by the 6th century, if not earlier. Christianity was in Ethiopia, at least by the 6th, 5th, 4th century, if not earlier. If the Bible was there, if people are citing it, that means the Bible must have been there at least 100 years before. So we say the Bible was already in use in 4th century, if not earlier, 3rd century. The Bible was there in 3rd century, if not 4th or 3rd century. That means Christianity entered a lot earlier on. I've made this argument over and over again, but yeah, I'll keep making it. Because there's some that really want to push when the Bible was translated or when Ethiopia became Christianized to much, much later on. Some people want to say Ethiopian Christianity entered Ethiopia in the 6th century. There's some people who want to make that argument. And I think to myself, you're just coming now, like you're getting rid of the primary sources that we have. Forget about like the oral tradition or anything. Getting rid of the primary evidence. Here's one of it. All right. This is really amazing stuff. But this is not the only thing. Like I said, so what happened? What happened when King Kaleb went to South Arabia? Well, he influenced the people that were there. Keep in mind, this is about 100 years before the emergence of Islam. So when Ethiopians went to South Arabia, they took their culture, their knowledge, their language with them, and they began to kind of adopt and assimilate with the people that were there. And when you begin to assimilate, what happens? A hybrid language begins to be born. And then soon afterwards, we have the Quran. We have the Quran, which comes, like I said, 100 or 200 years later. Now, here, I'm not interested in what all of this is saying, but I'm interested in what this word is. So it begins, Qala al-Hawariyuna nahanu al-Nazaru Allahi. Okay? My Arabic is really bad, so if they're like native Arabic speakers, I do apologize. But it says, Qala al-Hawariyuna nahanu Ansaru Allahi. What does that mean? Allah said, the disciples said, we are Ansaru, helpers, Lahi, of Allah, God. Now, the question here is, what does the word al-Hawariyuna mean? Al-Hawariyuna. Linguists like Sigmund Frankl have looked at these words in various languages, including Syriac, Aramaic, Hebrew, and Ethiopic. And it turns out the word al-Hawariyuna is derived from the Ge'ez word hora. From hora, you have horaya, hawur, yuhur, yuhur, hawir, hawirot, hawari, hawarian, hawariyat, haruyan, and then hawariyat. Look, hawariyat is a Ge'ez word. Then he looks at other words and he recognizes that words like tafassaha, hamir, mizahaf, tomar are found in the Quran, all of which are Ge'ez words that make their way into the Quran. So the Ethiopic, the Ge'ez, is even inspiring the Quran. Of course it does, because if we look at the history, we're saying that the Aksumites, when they went over to South Arabia, are bringing their culture, their language, their idea, their philosophy with them. And they kind of migrate and mingle and hybrid is formed. Ergo, the language of the Aksumites being adopted even by the Quran. This is amazing stuff. The end of King Kaleb is that he retreats. He puts down his crown and picks up a monk's hat, and he becomes a monk and lives a life of a monk, a hermit. And it is really a remarkable story, and I was fascinated with it the first time that I heard it. Number one, I was fascinated the fact that I never heard of the story growing up. You hear about various, characters and Hercules and whatever, various kind of heroes and sheroes and whatnot. But I was like, how come I've never heard about King Kaleb? Like, this is kind of an amazing story if you think about it, especially when you're considering the fact that his story was written about with a lot of other people across the world. So I found this to be fascinating. And that is kind of the story of King Kaleb. That's it for my part. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I can entertain a few questions. If not, we could call this a day. Hello, Akia. Hello, hello. We are talking about King Kaleb of Aksum. Oh, it's okay, Akia. Next time. Hopefully Saturday you'll be there. No problem. Uh, Finally, what happened is, okay, yeah, there's also on YouTube. You guys could kind of search for my name to listen to it in English, or I'm also here on Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. I'm thinking about coming in at around 12 or 12:30 to talk about this, and then we'll go from there. So today was the story of Kaleb. It's really like kind of a peaceful story. I really enjoy it. I really do. Um, so that is yeah, that's what I heard, Matt. But I was trying to be kind of um middle ground for everybody. So okay, I'll make it around like 12:30. I'll do 12:30 and see what happens. So at the end, King Kaleb goes to South Arabia. He rescues the Himyarites. He surrenders his crown and he picks up a monk's hat and he becomes a monk and he becomes a hermit. So that's how that story ends. It's a very like beautiful story. Um, it deserves a movie. Like that's by the way, that's like one of my like ultimate goals is to make a movie on King Kaleb. He deserves a movie. He's my hero. It's just a remarkable story, and I'm always like, you hear about like the Trojan and like whatever, like all these kind of like Eurocentric kind of like ideologies and whatever. You're like, all right, a stigmata. No, I have not. Good guy. All right. Looks like okay. I don't know about that, so I can't talk about it, and it's not the topic for today. Looks like no one really has a related topic, so we're gonna end it here. Those of you who came and supported, really appreciate you guys. Hope to see you guys on Saturday. Those of you guys who are gonna join on Saturday. Uh, those of you who are new to my channel, make sure that you're following me and see you guys maybe next week. I'm not sure about next week. We'll see. All right. Thank you for coming. Take care.